Hello everybody, Daniel here. My name is Daniel Rothamel. Thanks for joining me. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little walkthrough, a screencast of a project that I'm doing for my Level Up in Tech DevOps Engineering Bootcamp. So if you've been following along with me, I've been going through Level Up in Tech's DevOps Engineer Bootcamp, and we are at the stage where we are preparing to take the Amazon Web Services Certified Developer Associate test. So everything we're doing right now is related to AWS and its services. And I've done some previous projects, some related to AWS, and I've documented those, on drothamel.com on my Medium site. But this time I wanted to do a screencast to try something a little bit different. I'll document this as well. So as I'm going through, I'm going to take screen grabs so I can use that for the documentation, and I'll write it up later. But I want to do a screencast just to do something a little bit different. So here's what we're doing for our project today. So we're going to create an EC2 instance with an Apache web server. So we're going to create a T2 Nano EC2 instance. In the user data field, we're going to use a script that updates all the packages, installs Apache, and starts the service. But we're going to change that a little bit because we need to verify that the instance has the Apache web server downloaded and installed through the public IP. Now, if you'll notice here where the extra credit is, this says do all of this through the AWS CLI. Now, I've already done this part of the project where I did this through the console, the AWS console. Now I'm going to try to do this through the AWS Command Line Interface. I've done a little bit of research to figure out exactly the commands that I need to create the things I need to create. So I think that I can do this. And we're going to find out together whether or not I actually can. So you're going to get to follow along with me as I try and do this for basically the first time. All right, so let's get started. So what we need to do here is the use case for this is if you were creating an EC2 instance and you need an Apache web server to host a static web page on EC2. So that's what we're essentially trying to do. Now, I said, one of the things we're going to have to do in order to make this happen is our EC2 instance is going to have to be accessible via the public internet. And by default, EC2 instances aren't accessible by the public internet. So that means what we need to do is we actually need to create security groups first that allow public access so that when we launch our EC2 instance, we can attach the security group that allows public access. So that's actually the thing that we're going to do first. And that took me a little while to figure out how I can do that. So you'll see here, I went to the AWS Documentation and went to this thing about creating security groups via the command line. So that's where you do that is right in here. So this is actually the command that we need. So we're going to copy this. Let me take a screen grab here. Boop. So we're going to copy that, and now we're going to go back to the terminal. We're going to plug this in. So you can see what this command does. At AWS EC2, we need to create a security group. We're going to put in the group. So we're going to delete the VPC ID because we don't need to attach it to a specific VPC. So we're going to delete that. We're going to call this security group. This is where we put in the name here. So we're going to call this security group project group. And so then the description is, actually, you know what? I'm going to change this up and I'm going to call it web access because I may want to keep this group and use it later. So we're going to call this web access, and then we're going to change the description to web access group. Okay, so now when we do this, okay, so now we have the group ID. So the group ID obviously is going to be important. So let me get a screen grab of this. Okay, so the group ID is going to be important because the next thing we have to do is we have to create rules for our security group. So right here you can see add rules to your security group because like I said, we're going to need to be able to access the instance actually both via SSH and HTTP by the public internet. So that's where we do this. Now, let me get a screenshot of this. The instructions here are actually for doing this privately on your own machine. So basically it tells you to grab your IP address, put that in so that only you can access the page or access the instance. But like I said, this needs to be accessible from the public internet, so we're going to have to change this around a little bit. This is actually the command that we need right here. So we're going to take this command. Actually, we'll start with this one because we need SSH. So here's the command for SSH. Boop, boop, boop. So we're going to copy the command because that's the first thing we need to do because we need to be able to log into we need to connect to our server or our EC2 instance via SSH. So we're going to put We're going to put the command in, and then we need to take our security group ID right here, and we need to plug it in here. Right here. And obviously, port 22, you'll see here, port 22 is a default port for SSH, so we can leave that. Here, where we need to denote our IP range, what we need to put in here, this is where I could put in my IP at the computer I'm sitting at, although, my provider, DNS, or my internet provider is always going to change my IP, so that wouldn't really work. But if I wanted to make it super secure, I could have a static IP and put the IP address in there. I'm not going to do that. We want to be able to access this from anywhere, so we're going to do 0.0.0.0/0, which is basically access it via SSH from any IP address in the world. So we've plugged in our group ID, and we have created. This command will create that rule that'll allow SSH access from anywhere. So let's see if it works. If I hit enter, hopefully nothing happens. Yes, nothing happened. All right, so it did create that rule. Now we need a second rule to allow access from the web because the port changes. So we go back, and now all we have to do is we can keep everything the same. All we have to do is change the port. And the default port for access from the internet is port 80. So we change to port 80. Let's grab a screenshot of this. Boop, boop, boop. Did it do it? Yeah. Okay. So we did that correctly. So we got nothing returned. Now, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that I did this right. Because it would kind of stink to go through this whole thing. Oh, wrong window. To go through this whole thing and figure out I didn't do this right. So we can see, I could go to my EC2 dashboard, and I can go to my security groups up here, and it's added the security group. And you can see in here, the web access group is in here, right here. And if I go to my inbound rules, you can see you got SSH and HTTP down here. The window's all scrunched up. But you can see there's SSH right there and HTTP right there. So it looks like we've done this correctly. Awesome. Now, we have to go back to the terminal. And we go back to the terminal so that, because now what we have to do is actually create our EC2 instance, because we haven't done that yet. So we go back to our documentation for AWS, and we've got here how to launch, list, and terminate Amazon EC2 instances. So that's what we need. So let me just take a quick picture in case we need this. Now we go down and we get, to launch our instance, we need this command. So you'll see in this command, you have to change some of this information. One of the things you need is the AMI of the Amazon, the image name of the instance, the type of instance you're trying to launch. This is the one thing that I couldn't figure out how to get anywhere other than through the management console. But first, let me go ahead and plug in the command. So we'll leave it like that for a second. And then we're going to go back to the management console, and we're going to go to back to the dashboard, and we're going to pretend as if we're launching an instance, because if you remember in our instructions, we had to create a T2 Nano EC2 instance. So I'm going to, because we need an AMI, we need an AMI, we're going to pick the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. That's the one we've been using most commonly because it's on the free tier, and we like things that are free, and it's Linux based. So now we're going to take this right here. This is the AMI ID number. That's the AMI name. So we're going to take that, and we're going to go back to the terminal. And if somebody knows how to find this without using the console, let me know. I don't know if there's like a list of these somewhere. I couldn't find a command in CLI that would like list them, so I really don't know any other way of getting the AMI ID other than getting it like that. So you'll see we have the image ID. We put that in. We have one instance. It's a type T2 micro, just like we need. Now the next thing is the key pair. I have the key pair that I've downloaded that I created for my AWS user. The file's on my computer. This is the name of the file, so it'll use the key pair to log me in. Now, this is where we need the security group ID. So we go back up here to attach the correct security group. Otherwise, it's going to give us the default group, and that doesn't allow us access, as we mentioned before. So we put that in. We can take out the subnet and just use it'll just use a default, because that to us doesn't matter. All right, so now when we hit enter, this should, Lord willing, let me get a picture. This should, Lord willing, launch an EC2 instance for us. So cross your fingers. Yes! All right, so it did launch the instance. We're going to, so you can see this is the information about our instance. Here's the image ID, the instance ID. It's a T2 micro that used my key. This is when it got launched. This is where it is, the availability zone. So you can see all this information about our instance. So now we can quit out of that. Now what we need to do is actually log into the instance. Now, in order to log into the instance, we can go back to the console, and right here, if you, because now we need to, I mean, we think our image is there, but let's just, make sure. So if we refresh this, we should see a running instance in a second. Yes, there we go. It's running. If we click on the instance ID, we can see that it is here, and we can connect to it this way. So we'll copy this command. We'll go back to the terminal. Now yes to log in. So what happened there? Oh, I'm not in the correct directory. This is one thing that's a little annoying, is when you want to log into your instance, you have to be in the directory in which your key pair is in. So I'm not. So we'll have to cd into there. And then now we can run that command. Yeah, all right. So now we're in our instance. All right, so we've gotten that much correct. So we'll go back to our instructions here. So now we need to, so if we did this through the console, we would write a little script that would be put into the user data field called a bootstrap script that would update all the packages, install Apache, and start Apache. Since we're doing this through the console, we weren't able to do that. So what we're going to do is now we're going to do it manually. So the first thing we need to do is update all the packages. And since this is Linux based, Ubuntu or this is AWS's Linux. We're going to do sudo yum, because yum is the package installer, update tac y for saying yes to everything, and we will let it do that. We'll see how fast it goes, and updating all the packages on our instance. We'll give it a second. Yeah, it's hung up a little bit. So far, so good. All right, it's complete. So we've done that. So we've updated all the instances. Now we need to install Apache, and the way we do that is sudo yum install httpd. That's installing Apache. Oh, I should have hit yes. Should have hit tac y. I didn't. I'll put in yes. So now Apache is in. So now we need to start Apache. So we do system control start httpd. And hit enter. Oh, sudo system control start httpd. There we go. And then we have to do sudo. I forgot the sudo. Then we have to do sudo system control enable httpd to enable it. Now it's all in there. So now if we do system control, I think it's httpd status, or it might be status httpd. Yeah, it's system control status httpd. We can see that it is actually running. It's actively running. Hey, buddy. My son's in here. He's going to sit here and watch his iPad while I do this. So pardon any background noise. All right. So I think that we have completed all of the steps. So now what we need to do is just verify that we can actually access the website through the public IP address. So if we go back to our console, and we go back to instances, oops, I was in it, and we go to the instance, and we take the public IP address, and we paste it into a new window, bam, we have the Apache default page. So I did it. That was pretty cool. It took a little research going through the AWS documentation, which is very, very, very well done, as you can see. And I was able to find everything I need, and I successfully launched an EC2 instance, set up the security groups, installed and enabled Apache, and you can connect to it on the public internet. So that's pretty cool that I was able to do that, and I'm glad you got to follow along and watch. So I hope you learned something. If you saw anything I did that I could do better, if you're an experienced AWS user and you saw anything I could do that I could do better, let me know. Because I'm always looking to improve, do things a better way, make things easier, more efficient, anything like that. And continue to follow along with me on drothamel.com on our Medium site. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to connect with people and learn from others. So thanks a lot for watching. Everybody, take it easy.